by Jim Rice, Professor of International Law, located in Vigan, the Philippines, to discuss this in more detail with him. Jim, I just want to get your perspective on looking in from the outside. Obviously, you are based in the Philippines. Your insight on India's response and Pakistan's response and the ongoing tensions in the region of South Asia, and particularly in the region of Kashmir, in the territory. What are your thoughts?
Well, again, all of this is regrettable, especially the initial attack on the 20th of April, and the other.
I'm very sorry, Jim Rice. We seem to have some connection issues. We have some breaking news coming in, however. India's Ministry of Defence has issued a strict advisory to media outlets and individuals, urging them not to live stream or report real-time movements of security forces during operations, citing national security and past incidents like Kargil and 26/11 and the Kandahar hijacking. Officials warn such coverage may compromise missions and lives. Only official briefings will be allowed under amended cable TV rules. Patrick, I want to come to you on this breaking. Obviously, the warfare isn't obviously just done on the battlefield. However, it can be a war of words and a war of reputations. We've seen conflicting statements from both sides in this war, claims being thrown about on each side. This is something that you can resonate with, I assume. How important is public perception, international perception, and image and media outlets during times like this of heightened tensions?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely very important to get information out in a timely manner. But as that warning says, journalists need to be responsible in how they report, so they do not affect the on the ground actual fighting, as far as targeting information to another side of any conflict, not just this one, because it can really end people's lives, both soldiers and civilians. So journalists do have a responsibility to be diligent on how they report, what information they report, not to censor themselves, but to not put lives at risks. And of course, journalists don't tend to have the ability to be reporting on both sides. So the overall picture that people need to get is from multiple sources. I tell all my viewers always, don't just watch my reports. I don't have all the information. Watch reports on both sides of every contact line. Get as much information from as many different sources as possible to educate yourself. And that's what people need to do, because not one source has all the information. Everybody's just doing their little piece of the pie. And people need to do their own due diligence to get information themselves.
Yes. I want to come to you next, Air Vice Marshal Kapil Kak. I want to get your insight on some of the information that's being put out, as we've mentioned previously, conflicting statements from both the Indian and the Pakistani government about statistics, about attacks, claims being thrown either way. How do people follow this war, and how do people recognize information? Do you agree with Patrick's statement that it's important to look at both sides in this conflict in particular? I believe that you've muted yourself, Air Vice Marshal.
I'm sorry. I think I didn't mute it. I think the studio muted it. I agree with the very thoughtful comments made by both Patrick and Jim. I think your point is also extremely valid, because it's the question of how you shape public perceptions. What are the optics of the conflict? and the cognitive impulses which define and shape public perception. I think insofar as journalistic accounts are concerned, of course, there are journalists who are pronouncedly pro-government, there are journalists who are not so pro-government, but one factor we need to keep in mind is social media, a very, very powerful tool of shaping perceptions. And I would go to the extent of saying that in the recent hours, one has seen unreal clownry, in the sense that reports of Islamabad having been destroyed, Lahore having been destroyed, Pakistan Army Chief having been arrested, and a new Army Chief having been appointed. I think this kind of a completely fake and jingoistic impulse in the public domain distorts public perception, and therefore all the more reason that we must have information and communication strategy on both sides of the line of control and the border, Pakistan as well as India, issue out statements periodically so that their respective publics are informed about the progress of the conflict, and facts as they are brought out. Yes, there can be an element of exaggeration. For example, you would have followed, so would have Patrick and Jim, about downing of fighter aircraft. Now, no credible information of how many fighter aircraft were lost by India, if at all, and how many by Pakistan, if at all. So there is a whole heap of speculation going on. I also want to make two related points, and this is in terms of combat worthiness, readiness state having been brought up by India in terms of warships deployment in the North Arabian Sea, reports of what exactly was the damage at the Karachi port. None of that has come from Pakistan. And there is also, I think, for your consideration and your co-panelists, a time for now to ensure we don't get into the Russia, Ukraine, or Israeli force application in Gaza type of situation. Far too much is at stake in the continued socio-economic development, both sides, India as well as Pakistan. So the responsibility, I'm perhaps repeating, lies so much more with Pakistan at this point of time, because we must not forget the first escalation was by Pakistan. Very provocative, very cowardly, but response has taken place, counter response has taken place, counter response has taken place. So the time to have is at this moment for the international community. So much is happening in terms of nimble footwork by high-level diplomats from US, from UK, from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, in trying to get the two sides to call it quits and move forward from here. It may take a while to get the bilateral relation between the two countries, which has been in deep cold storage for nearly 6 years, to get them back on track. But I think facilitators like Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Zayed of UAE, the Emir of Qatar, who has taken a lot of pains in the previous conflict in recent months and years, who's also apprised of the situation here. I think international community has a far, far greater role than it had in the Russia, Ukraine, and Israel-Hamas conflicts.
Jim, I want to move on to you next, just briefly.